All right, let's open the file. What we have here is a story pieced together from some pretty confidential stuff. Police dossiers, classified reports, old university transcripts. This is the chronicle of Herbert West, a man who looked at death and didn't see an end, but just a problem that needed to be solved.
And it really all starts with these words. This wasn't just some dean kicking a student out. This was a warning. A plea, really. And it was said to Herbert West, a brilliant young physician, years before anyone could possibly know the kind of horror his work would unleash on the world.
You know, to really understand this file, we actually have to jump to its bloody conclusion first. The story doesn't truly erupt in some quiet university classroom. No, it explodes years later, in 1912, on the terrified streets of Arkham, Massachusetts. The city was already battling a typhoid plague, but it was about to face something so much worse. Just look at how fast everything went sideways. According to the Arkham Advertiser, on Monday, the city's mourning its hero, Dean Halsey, who died fighting the plague. By Thursday morning, a watchman is found torn to pieces. By that night, there's a monster rampaging through the city. We went from a medical crisis to an absolute nightmare in less than 72 hours.
And then the police reports came in, with this horrific confirmation. When they finally cornered and shot this creature, the face was unmistakable. It was Dean Halsey, the man they had just buried. His tomb was empty. And then there's this one chilling detail noted by witnesses. A recently expelled medical student, Herbert West, had been seen lurking around town right before the chaos started. The university, they had no comment.
Okay, so to understand the monster Halsey became, we have to rewind. Our investigation needs to go back 4 years, to the exact moment its creator was first called out for his genius and his madness. This disciplinary transcript from Miskatonic in 1908 really gets to the heart of it. For Dean Halsey, this was all about ethics, about the dignity of the dead, about the sacred trust of medicine. For Herbert West, the university morgue was, and I'm quoting him here, a temple of wasted potential, and his colleagues, they were just cowards. And what this transcript shows is that West wasn't just bending the rules, he was playing a totally different game. In his mind, there was no soul. Life was just an electrical current that he could restart. And death? Well, death was just a disease that he was going to cure. I mean, just listen to the absolute defiance here. He's standing in front of the very people who are about to destroy his career, and he's not sorry. He's triumphant. He genuinely, truly believed he was on the verge of conquering death itself. So, he's expelled. But he is not even close to being done. West just disappears from the academic world. Our file picks up his trail in this quiet little mill town, Bolton, Massachusetts. He opens a new practice. And well, it doesn't take long for the local police to start noticing some very strange things, like fresh graves being disturbed and things moving in the night when they shouldn't be. This confidential police dossier from 1910, it's just chilling. It clinically breaks down West's entire horrifying process. Chief Moulton of the Bolton PD had pieced it all together. West was stealing bodies, shooting them up with these chemical solutions, and then desperately trying to get rid of the violent, messy results. And the case file just shows things getting worse and worse. His experiments weren't just failing, they were becoming monsters. One of them, a reanimated prizefighter, actually escaped, dug up another grave for some reason, and then came back to attack its own creator. West was completely losing control. Chief Moulton, he tried to get an arrest warrant, but apparently local politics got in the way and protected West, so the investigation was shut down. But the chief's final, terrified note in the dossier, it tells you everything. He knew this wasn't just some criminal case. It was something far worse. With his work in Bolton pretty much over, West vanishes again, only to pop up in the single most violent place on Earth, the battlefields of World War I. Now think about it. For a man like West, the war was a horrifying gift. It gave him the one thing he always craved, a practically endless supply of very fresh specimens. As Major Herbert West, his experiments were about to enter a terrifying new phase. Can you imagine? A military inspector walks into West's field lab and he hears a whisper. He looks around and he realizes it's coming from the severed head of a major, Sir Eric Moreland Clapham Lee, a head that West was keeping alive in a vat. And it was just reliving its final moments, the plane crash that killed its pilot. But West's reaction? It wasn't horror. It was pure, unfiltered triumph. He'd done it. He'd made a terrifying leap forward. The mind, the actual personality, could exist without the body. He didn't see an abomination. He saw his greatest achievement. After the war, the trail goes cold again for a while. West settles down in Boston, and his work becomes more secret than ever. For years, everyone just assumed his creations were mindless, violent puppets. But then, in 1931, a classified FBI file reveals a horrifying new truth. They had evolved. They started to organize. And worst of all, they started to remember. This FBI psychological profile, it's just incredible. It charts West's horrifying progress. I mean, it wasn't just about bringing people back anymore. He was creating these hybrid horrors, mixing human and animal parts, creating little fragments of life that could actually think for themselves. And in 1931, it seems they all linked up, like a hive mind.
And so that brings us to the final night, September 17th, 1931. It all begins, simply enough, with the doorbell. West's past has just arrived at his front door, prepaid.
The messenger? It's the head from the battlefield, Clap from Lee. And he's now the apparent leader of a whole legion of West's former experiments. They had organized themselves, they remembered exactly what he did to them, and now they had come for him. West's laboratory, which he built over an ancient colonial tomb, well, it becomes his own tomb. The wall behind his furnace cracks open, and they just start pouring out. An entire army of the dismembered and reanimated, led by something with a perfect wax head and another with the half-eaten face of an old asylum patient. And even as he's being literally taken apart by his own work, his last recorded words are a cold, clinical assessment of his own dismemberment. Right to the very, very end, he was nothing more and nothing less than a man of science. Officially, the file on Herbert West just stops here. The FBI closed the case. They marked him as missing, presumed deceased. But the horror he started didn't die with him. Oh no, it festered. And 4 years later, in 1935, a new, completely impossible death in Providence, Rhode Island, had his signature all over it, suggesting this story was far from over. I mean, just look at this case comparison from the file. It's damning. You've got these impossible phosphorescent compounds at both scenes, this bizarre visual of a 3-lobed eye reported in both cases, and then you have the detail that just seals it. Both the FBI case on West's disappearance and the medical examiner's file on this new death were assigned the exact same case number, 847. That is not a coincidence. The official record ends right there, just a storm of unanswered questions. Herbert West may be gone, taken apart and absorbed by his own creations. But the forces he woke up and the terrible knowledge he perfected, they're not. Which leaves us with the ultimate question that his entire life's work really poses.